Hello, everyone. I think people need to differentiate more between knowledge and wisdom because they aren't the same thing. Someone can be very well read in terms of the amount of information that they've consumed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be able to think critically or be insightful if they don't actually know how to interpret that information, the information that they're reading. For example, you could have someone who's read a lot of literature but they take things or interpret things in a very literal way. So even though they've read a lot, if they don't know how to interpret metaphor, they can still be very limited in terms of their abilities to be insightful if they do not have that skill set. And so I think that's an important thing to distinguish. In fact, I think that if someone has wisdom, they could be far less well read, but still be more insightful than someone who has read more but doesn't have those same capabilities. For example, the ability to interpret metaphor. And another thing I think people need to watch out for is thinking that just because someone is, let's say, well read or knowledgeable in one area, that necessarily means they will be well read or knowledgeable in another area. That doesn't necessarily follow. For example, you could have a brilliant scientist. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be great at philosophy, and vice versa. And so that's another thing. So often we tend to think, well, if this person's intelligent in one area, they must be intelligent in another area. That's not always true. Being well read or being insightful, these things are multifaceted, and people can have different skill sets. And so never think that just because someone is well read that necessarily means they will be insightful, or just because someone has a lot of knowledge that necessarily means that they will be insightful, because that is a different skill set. Ultimately, you have to be able to read and have an open mind and a curious mind in order to be insightful. You have to have both skills. If you just have one, then you will be very limited in terms of your um, abilities to engage with literature well. So I just think that is something that people need to be aware of.